Well, none of those are comedies. So, those caper novels, those are I'm sorry, those are comedies. I don't think film noir can be comedy. You do need to have that certain look. There was an essay in last month's Gentleman's Magazine, Playboy, on whatever happened to the Hollywood, the disappearance of the Hollywood tough guy. And they go through that. We don't have, contemporary movies does not have a Robert Mitchum. We don't have a James Cagney a la White Heat. Mm-hmm. We don't have these characters anymore. Nobody wants to play them. And that's a big difference of what's happened with caper novels and heist films. Both caper novels and heist films, the best ones, they don't pull the crime off. Mm-hmm. They lose it. They watch it just slip away from them, or they watch it go by and somebody else gets it, or they're all dead, or they're about all to be dead, or like in The Usual Suspects, you think you've got everything put together, and it all falls apart, and it doesn't have a happy ending. There's been a shift, and some of the best heist movies that are going on now, they all have to have happy endings. The Town has to have a happy ending. Inception, which is a heist movie, has to have a happy ending. I don't know.
I don't know if that does have a happy ending. Second time I saw it, I was less convinced that it had a happy ending.
Well, we don't want to give anything away, but we'll pinky wrestle over it later. But there does seem to be the shift, sadly to me, away from these tragic, horrible endings. You know, crime doesn't pay endings, because they're just better stories than these got away with it kids. I'm not saying that I'm afraid that we're raising a generation of criminal masterminds, which would be cool, but I don't think we're doing that. My concern is that they're just boring stories. I much rather watch all their efforts slide away to nothing. Cruel.
Yes, sir.
What's your thought on it?
Oh, wait, she's got this microphone, and she's been dying to get it to somebody.
Well, I was wondering your thoughts as somebody who's watched old movies and read older novels. Sensitivities change over time. You know, I just watched The Karate Kid for the first time in 15 or 20 years, and I was shocked to watch Mr. Miyagi offer Ralph Macchio a drink. You know, I thought, wait, right. He's not supposed to do that. He's only 16. I read, I can't remember the name of the author, but the Parker novels.
That's Donald Westlake writing under a pseudonym. He writes as Richard Stark. Donald Westlake again? Who is this man?
Again. Yeah, you're right. And and that was a movie with Mel Gibson where he's kind of getting slapped in the back of the head, and it's almost a comedy. He's a stone cold killer in the books, and there's lots of. So I'm just wondering, do you run into that where, we can't go that far? The protagonist can't just brutally kill somebody to dispatch them.
I have to agree that we just don't have the level of. We don't want even our bad guy heroes. For example, James Bond. James Bond's got a license to kill, but in the new movies they won't let him smoke. So here's a man that's licensed to kill, but don't worry about secondhand smoke. Just like we just don't want to see that in our tough guys, and they've got to have that heart of gold. Where in the real world, the real criminals, like you were talking about earlier, sir, they plug you, and we have to have this sense of honor and the pat on the back and the shrug or something like that. Yes, I do think that we've gone way too sensitive. We want people to relate to our bad guys in a good way. So we're not going to get. I wonder what would happen under this sensibility if they went back in the Robert Mitchum novel, On the Island. He comes back to get to the people. Help me out. Robert Mitchum, he's a crazy killer, he's stalking people.
Cape Fear?
Cape Fear. Cape Fear was remade a few years ago, and that was pretty tough. I wonder if we remade it now. I wonder if, who are you going to have play the tough, mean guy? Leonardo DiCaprio? Who's the Hollywood heavy? We don't have one.
Russell Crowe.
Nah.
He throws phones at people.
Yeah. I'll hit you with a phone.
Well, let's get back to the second novel, the second YA novel.
Right.
You've again adapted a genre or a subgenre that has a certain established structure.
Right.
So again, you're limiting yourself based on the type of story that you want to tell. What are the benefits and what are the challenges of working within this established structure?
I think that the biggest benefit is that I know the road. It's like I'm driving. I know where I want to get, and I know the roads I'm going to take. But there's going to be a lot of pull-offs onto the side. There's going to be a little serendipitous, 40-mile jaunt off to see the world's biggest ball of twine or something. But I know the road and I know the route where I want to go. That's one of the best things about it. One of the difficulties in it is that I'm expected to have here's the scene where we find out that this different guy can like this girl, because I've kind of almost set it up. And as I'm coming to it, I'm not gonna follow that pattern. Well, there's a pattern for a reason. It kind of works, and it does fit good right about there. So that was one of the benefits and one of the frustrations, is that when you're, again, with a caper novel, I've got to explain how they were setting it up. If I don't explain how it's setting it up, it's not so much a caper novel, it suddenly seems out of the blue. But then I've got to go through and set it all up. And so there's that idea that I have a path, but then, gee, maybe I want to go farther off the path than I was planning. So I think that would be the biggest change.
Now, I haven't read it yet, but as I remember it, there were certain old movies that were getting shown.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So what I want to, well, maybe you should set that up first. How the old movies
the female lead in the movie loves old films, and she can't believe that our protagonist hasn't seen them. Keep in mind, to her, an old film is The Sting. So she wants to make sure that he sees these. So she brings them together, and they watch these films. It's only at the end of the book, when you look back, do you realize there was a reason she was showing him certain films in a certain order, and what she wanted him to get from them. And what he, in fact, got. So it's something different. So that's the whole premise of it. So in the novel, I'll have this little film description. It looks like I just took it right off Rotten Tomatoes. So it'll say, like, Animal Crackers, the Marx Brothers, Captain Spaulding does, and just 4.5 stars or whatever it is. And then they go into a discussion of it.
So I'm going to do an analysis on this book that I've never read.
Excellent.
It seems almost a sort of a postmodern take on the caper novel, in that you're using previously established specific stories to tell the audience what is supposed to happen before you take them onto what's going to actually happen. Right,
and the benefit for that, I agree, that I am setting you up, but the thing is, none of the young adults will have seen the movies I mentioned. They will not have seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They will not have seen Animal Crackers. They won't have seen The Sting. And so they won't see The Asphalt Jungle. These are things that are referenced that if you saw them, you would say, oh, I know where this is going. But you don't. So it's like a little added, I learned this from the web designers where I work, that they put in these things, like what do they call them, Easter eggs or something like that, these little hidden bonuses that if you get it and you know it, you get like this, woo, this little extra, I got something special from this. So if you've seen the movies and you're a young adult reading this, it's going to snap with you quicker. If you're an adult reading it, and I encourage you to read it, you'll get a lot more of the jokes.
Going back to structure a little bit, what you were saying reminded me a little bit of how modern authors are pushed to do things a certain way. The last two 21st century novels I read, or reread, I guess, you and Megan's Bury Me Deep,
right,
followed a very similar, specific motion picture structure, and that there's four, that at each quarter point, it takes a specific turn. In You, it's the first time he meets Zach. Halfway, it's the first time he goes to Zach. He's turned around. And the three-quarter point is when Zach makes his move.
Absolutely.
And it's, obviously you're shaking your head. That was done in a very specific way.
I deliberately set out, and we've talked about this at length, that when I write as if I'm rolling a movie in my head. and I see it visually. This is what I want to bring to life. This is what, if I was filming it, I could almost cut the pages out and paste them down and say, this is the order I want it shot. So there definitely is a cinematic feel to everything. There's deliberate. When I write the last page, I can tell you, I write the last page and can picture the credits coming up. That's how I think about it. And I don't know if it's, I've certainly watched more movies than I read books, and that doesn't mean because I don't read. I'm a voracious reader, but a 3-hour commitment as opposed to a three-day or 3-week commitment. I've had a lot more 3-hour opportunities in my life. So I can't help but to be influenced by it. So it does drive it.
Now, when you say, you brought this up, so you're in trouble. When you say that you envision it as a film,
right?
I'm thinking in my head like there's zoom ins and zoom outs, there's panning shots. Is this all part of how you're envisioning the camera techniques and color palette?
When I'm writing it, I deliberately, when I have a character talking and they're doing something, I'll tell you, I will say sometimes, it's like he looked up and turned to his left, and yeah, I have it exactly how I want it framed. And sometimes I'll say with the window behind her or something like this, so to frame it.
And then you go out and direct commercials and you have these delusions of grandeur as to what you're actually
delusions? Yeah, I do find myself doing this a lot. And yelling things like action. But yeah.
Right here, Charles.
Oh. So yeah, I guess that is my little fantasy world. Get to direct it.